I am sure sports. You know me there. I'm coast to coast representing. I mean, I say this is righteous representing for Omar. You don't know, come get the sports over here from near and far. Boy. Me say I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. I am sure sports, one thing me sure about. When me say sure, that me not doubt. Come get your sports, get it over here. Come subscribe, repost and share. If me not sure, that me not say it. Know who score, that me not say it. Never know no game play, that me not say it. If me never seen a game, me no know who play. For your sports news, better come over here so. For your soccer news, then come over here so. If you don't love sports, still come over here. For the day done, you are gonna love over yourself.
So when it comes on to behavior concerning football, Jamaica is decent. I am sure that if we can get all of these things done, set in place by the end of April, it gives us enough time before the World Cup campaign. Not afraid of no Brazil, no Argentina with these crap of players. We are good enough. Remember, like, subscribe, share. Listen, comment, let me know what your thoughts are.
Trick Nick Jerk Marinade gives your meats and vegetables authentic Jamaican jerk flavor. The spices are directly from Jamaica. Spices like jerk seasoning, allspice, Scotch bonnet pepper, fresh scallions, thyme, ginger, and garlic. The key ingredients to a great jerk marinade. 0% sugar and low in sodium. You want to try it?
All right, good morning. Welcome to I Am Sure Sports. I am your host, Manningsman. As usual, when we begin, we always want to just say thank you to the Most High God for giving us life and life more abundantly. It's certainly a great privilege to be alive, and we should never, ever take it for granted that we have life and we have breath in our lungs. It's a grateful thing. Many did not make it through the night, and many at sunrise just never continued. But here we are, and so we are grateful. We are grateful for the struggles, and we are grateful for the good moments, because they all put together make us who we are and build life experiences to make us better people. I encourage you today to be good and do good. That's what the world needs. The world needs people who are impacting people's life. Find a way today to add value to someone's life. Make somebody else's life better by being a good person. All right. I know some of you have been missing me, but I, as best as I can, I walk in integrity, because at the end of your life, at the end of my life, I want people to say, at my funeral, he was a man of integrity. So I'm living to that end. So when I'm on national duty, I resist the urge and temptation to do videos, because I know you're going to ask me questions about the national team that I'm not allowed to disclose, so I stay away. So thank you for coming on. It is Super Friday, and I have the privilege this morning of speaking with and engaging one of the Caribbean's best footballer in that era. If you go back to the days when I would call that there was I don't want to say bitter rivalry, but there was an intense rivalry between Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica. He was part of that group of players that came through, went to the World Cup, played in England, played in the States, played in a very strong Joe public side in Trinidad and Tobago. He's now a sports journalist. He also served, I believe, in 2015, if memory serves me right, he was appointed as Minister of Sports in his country. His name is Brent Sancho, and I know all of you want to ask if he's Jadon Sancho's father. I don't know, but maybe he will oblige and share that information. So I want us to welcome this morning to I Am Sure Sports, Mr. Brent Sancho. Mr. Sancho, I hope I did justice.
Morning, man. Thanks for having me on your program. I can answer that right very, very quickly. No, I'm not Jadon's father, but I know his dad very well, Sean. We're cousins, and their origins and roots and lineage go back to Guyana, not Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So most of my family lineage is Guyanese on my father's side. So yes, I know Jaden very well. I know his dad extremely well. We're family. I talk to them quite often. But yes, certainly Guyanese percentage.
That is good information because many people have been saying, why can't he even at this time probably switch and represent Trinidad and Tobago? So it's good that you kind of brought some clarity to that. Yes. All right, but for those who don't know you, just take a few minutes and share with them just your beginnings in football in Trinidad, and all the way up to the time of your exit from playing into sports journalism. What was the journey like for you, and how did it all begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I must say that my life has taken a lot of different journeys and travel that I certainly didn't predict. I certainly didn't expect to happen. I grew up in what we call now in Trinidad and Tobago a hotspot, a community that obviously was impoverished with crime and hardship. I moved out from there, playing high school football for a team called Malik. Back then, we were dominant in the high school football in Trinidad and Tobago. We produced the likes of Arnold Dorica, Gary Glasgow, just to name a few. We had a lot of national team players, and I played both at Trinity College and at Malik, where we won, I think, every trophy possible at Malik Secondary. I went on to university in America. I played community college at Essex and then on to St. John's. I was part of the 1996 St. John's team that won the first ever NCAA championship. A tremendous feeling. Remarkably, back then I was playing a forward for St. John's, which was really one of the positions I took up early in my career as a player. And I thought that was it, to be honest with you. I was going to graduate. I started my master's degree in psychology a year into that. I got a phone call from a Jamaican colleague of mine, and he said, what do you do with yourself? You plan to play professional football? I was like, no, I plan to finish my master's and probably go into the working field. And he said, give it one more chance. He has a trial for me in Germany with a Finnish football club. They had a game over there. So, of course, after the collegiate season, I wasn't fit or anything. I was working, I was doing my master's. I trained for a month in Queens, New York, all on my own before going on trials. Went to the trials, was nervous, of course, as you would expect. We played a team called 1860 Munich. Some of your viewers may remember the team. And I had an incredible game. I actually scored a goal in it, playing it as a number 6 defensive midfielder. And I remember going back to the hotel, and the agent called. Calvin is his name. He said to me, well, you done well. I was like, that's what you were told. He said, yeah, they want to keep you. And that was the start of my professional football career. So I started with
Finland?
In Finland. So I started with a club called Milakoski Palo 47, which was a Finnish football club. And then I went on to a club called Telfaret, all in the Finnish league. And then everything else just blossomed from there. I had a small stint with training with New York Metro Stars. I didn't sign a contract. I ended up going to Charleston Battery, Portland Timbers, and then I went back over to Europe with Dundee. We had a successful stint there, and then went down south to England. We played with Gillingham, Millwall, etc. So that was my club career, very successful, and of course, part and parcel of that club career was my international career as well, where I played for Trinidad and Tobago for close to 50 times. 3 of those games in that 50 caps or so. I was in the World Cup in 2006. Even that situation didn't really pan out the way I thought it would have. I went there as probably the second string centre half, so the pairing of Dennis Lawrence and Marvin Andrews. And 3 days before the opening game against Sweden, Marvin Andrews went down with a knee injury. And the coach tried to play Kenwin Jones as a centre half. The coach back then was Lil Benaka, Lil Benaka.
Kenwin Jones.
Yeah, he tried to put Kenwin at the back, and
wasn't he playing as a striker in England at that time?
He was, but he grew up playing high school football like many of us around that time, playing as a centre half. It's only when he went to England on trials that he was turned into a forward. But he went back there, and the coach, had a look at it. And the day before the Sweden game, he walked over to me, Leo Malaka, and he said, "You don't look too happy. What's wrong?" I was like, "Well, I want to play. I think I deserve to start." He said, "You sure you want to play?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, you're playing tomorrow." And that's how I started in the World Cup against Sweden. Of course, that historic 0-0 draw against Sweden, and went on to play against England back then. Of course, the famous crouch tug of the dreadlocks, and then on to the Paraguay game. So, that's how I ended up playing in the World Cup team. I've thoroughly enjoyed, of course, my international career. I love playing for my country. It's certainly been one of the highlights of my career. And I've had a lot of great experiences playing with Trinidad. I had some unbelievable games. We got to play against Brazil with Ronaldinho and all the stars. I got to play against Egypt, Morocco, some really remarkable football games against some of the world's best players. So thoroughly enjoyed my football career. And of course, that came to an end when I moved back to Trinidad and I started to I was a player, not a player coach, but a player GM for a team called Northeast Stars in the local leagues. And during my stint there, I stopped playing football and started focusing on the administrative side of the sport. And then after 2 years with Northeast Stars, I decided, you know what, I can do this myself. And I started my own club called Central FC, which was very successful. We are the only club to win the league 3 times in a row. And we also won 2 Caribbean Club Championships as well. So I got into club administration. I started to work heavily in that. And of course, another twist in my journey, in my work, I ended up having, of course, the opportunity to meet the then Prime Minister, Ms. Kamala Persad-Bissessar of Trinidad and Tobago, working on a situation where the Trinidad and Tobago team was on the cusp of striking. That's when the Caribbean Cup was in Jamaica. They had Jamaica in the finals. Yes, and I had to do negotiation between the club, the captain back then, Kenwin Jones, myself. And she was really impressed with the way I handled myself and handled the situation. I got called into other sporting situations within the government. And one day I was in New York. She had removed a minister and shifted one across. So there was a vacancy in the ministry as a minister of sport. I was having dinner with my sister in New York, and I got a call from somebody saying that they're Kamala Persad-Bissessar, and I was like, nah. I was like, no chance. And she said, I want you to be my sports minister. And of course, you can imagine the shock on my face, and my sister is looking at me like, what is going on with you? So I somehow dropped the phone, and of course it hung up. And I told my sister, she's like, you need to take it. And that was that. That's how I ended up becoming sports minister. And again, an experience that I hold dearly to my heart. I learned a lot about sports administration, and of course, sporting in Trinidad and Tobago and the mechanisms that it flow under. So that is a nutshell of the things that I've done. I could go on and on. I could talk about acting in a movie. I could talk about all those things, but I won't go that far.
Oh, yes. And we don't get even to the journalism part of your work, which you have been doing.
That started back in 2015. Well, it started before that. I actually did. I don't know if you remember, there was a Shell Cup in Martinique.
Right. I think Jamaica won the Shell Cup.
Yes. And the production company had asked me to do some color commentary. I've never done anything like that in my life. And I went over there, and the producer at the end of it said, you know what, we got calls because it went out not just in the Caribbean, but somehow Fox as well, Fox Sports covered some of it. And he said, we're getting calls, and they were impressed with the fact that I was able to give such detail and paint pictures. And that's kind of how it started then. And then fast forward to 2015, I was asked by Sportsmax to come over and cover the Copa America in Jamaica. And I spent a month in Jamaica covering it. And I was very fortunate because there's 2 very, very good producers, one from South Africa and the other from England. And they mentored me for 6 months. And I learned some valuable lessons in the trade of sports journalism. And so something I ended up really falling in love with and started to do more games. And of course, when you do more games, you get better at doing it. At least I believe so. And so my journey started with Sportsmax, and I cover the SSFL and most CONCACAF Nation League games, and of course, all international football and Champions League for Sportsmax.
All right, there's so much that we can unpack. Yeah, we can unpack. But because you spoke about Central FC, a team that I've seen, I haven't seen any league in Trinidad in a little while. In fact, a couple of players, I know two of them played for Defense Force, Wooling and Daniels.
Yeah.
They're playing for the Veer team. And there are a few others who have been here. You have James at Mount Pleasant. You have Overy at Cavaliers. You have a couple in Montego Bay United, which is good to see. But what is happening in terms of the league in Trinidad? Because I know the administration changed and they were taken off. The MA was removed from the administrative FIFA. What's it called? It was under FIFA
Normalization Committee. Yeah.
Normalization Committee. No longer there. New administration. What is happening with the league? What is happening with Central and the rest of the team in this down period right now?
Yeah, well, when I started Central FC, I think that was back in 2013, I believe. It really came about the fact that I was working with Northeast Stars, and I felt, look, the owner of Northeast Stars had, his direction for a football club, and I had my feelings, and so we amicably parted ways, and I said, I could do this myself. I found that if I could create a club, build the right culture, have the right ethos, I wasn't aiming necessarily to win titles, but I was aiming to better the standards, the outlook, the way things are done. And I felt that the way to do that is to get the right people around you, from not just coaching, but administrators, like-minded people who are passionate about being successful on and off the pitch. And we started to build a club. We did a tremendous job in our commercial drive. We still hold the record for the most commercial support for any club in Trinidad and Tobago. We raised close to $1.5 to $2 million during my time in sponsorship monies, which is significant. And on top of that, and I'm always been a strong believer, if you're solid off the pitch and making sure you're consistent in your values, the success on the pitch will come. But the success came a lot faster than we thought it would have come. We won after 2 years. We finished second in our second year, and then we went on a streak of winning 3 times in a row, which was truly remarkable for us as a club. We didn't expect that to come so quickly, but we tried our best to maintain it. And then, of course, we had some financial challenges. We had a lot of outstanding prize monies, and so I had to move on from the club because I was also doing work. Was doing work with FIFA and CONCACAF as well. So I've left that position there. But as it relates to the league locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, I think the league is starting to slowly get back on its feet. As you rightfully said, we had a normalization committee for the last 4 years. There's a new administration. I think they've started to slowly shift aside some of the deadwood that was there in the league, and now is trying to get it back up and running. As you know, Trinidad and Tobago arguably had the most vibrant league in the Caribbean. We had players from all over the Caribbean coming down there, but that has changed, and more of the players are heading up to Jamaica. But I think as Trinidad and Tobago try to progress in terms of development of the league and moving forward, I think you might see it's kind of pattern out and players starting to shift to come back. And all of this, at the end of the day, is governed by good governance. You need corporate support or financial support to have a strong league. And of course, you have to have a good product. And I think those 3 pillars are hopefully what this new administration are looking at to try and guide it. Just on Tuesday, they had the launch of the league. I was there. It's good to see San Juan Jablete, one of the older clubs, back on the fold. But for any club owner, I can tell you from my perspective, it is a very expensive line of work, and it is taxing. As you know, many clubs in world football operate at a loss, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. They believe everybody makes money once you're into football. That's not true. And so you have to always try to reinvent yourself to obviously become at least running at zero deficit, which is very, very difficult to do. So I think as clubs start to slowly get back onto their feet, the hope is that they start meeting some of those goals and targets.
Yeah, I think that is so important what you just raised, because when you look at the last couple of years in the league in Trinidad, for example, defense force and police, they have done well, and you'd believe that is because they're basically state funded or supported. So maybe they have more resources available to them to take care of their players and create the kind of environment um, to do well in the league, more so than the clubs coming out of the pandemic. But I think this is the issue with football probably across the world, and even so, more so the Caribbean, because you said it, Central FC had outstanding prize monies. And even if you were to collect all of that prize money, it may not even be sufficient to break even. What must happen to aid clubs to break even so they can produce better quality? Because if you're in deficit, how do you build a sustainable program that builds players from under 10s all the way up to under 23s and be able to move them from Trinidad to other places in the world, from Jamaica to other places in the world, if you're investing all of this money but you're making no money from your investment?
It is the challenge, the biggest challenge. And if you look at the club owners, and they all come from very humble beginnings, they're not necessarily multi-billionaires, but they still try their best because it's a passion that they have. And the sport does require a high level of resources, financial resources, to be able to even compete. The majority of the clubs in Trinidad and Tobago do not have a youth structure. They don't, because they can't afford it. It's not like they don't want to do it. They can't afford it. So that structure that you need in a club to obviously see players moving through the various ranks and having developmental programs that can push players all the way through to your professional club doesn't happen. And then when you look at in Trinidad and Tobago, there's very few players that sign multi-year contracts. So every year players are scrambling around for clubs. They're looking for a new beginning here in Trinidad and Tobago. That's coming out of the pandemic. The majority of the clubs do one-year contracts because they don't know what the next year presents to them, because a lot of the financing and financial support comes from the government, comes from the FA now, and you don't know if that situation could change. Next year we have elections in Trinidad and Tobago, and there might be a new government in place. There might be the same time, they might have a new sports minister. That person may have a different view on the funding football. So for a club, it's very difficult to make any forecast because you don't know the income that you get from gates and you generate from merchandising and whatnot. It's not even a drop any well. And even if you had your own facility, and I think a lot of people miss this sometimes. I hear a lot of Trinbagonians talk about, well, you need to have your own club and your own. If you have your own stadium, the maintenance cost is going to be through the roof, and
Yes.
most clubs can't afford that. So it is a difficult business proposition when you talk about football. The main source of income for any football club in the Caribbean is the sale of players. And as you know very well, that is not something that happens as regularly as probably before. We do have players going out, but any club that comes in for a player in the Caribbean, they're not going to pay no massive transfer fee, because the first thing they would say is that this player is not proven in Europe. So they would want to take the player either on a free or on a loan situation with a sell-on clause attached to it, and it's dependent on how well that player does. And so there goes the challenge, because if we ask anyone or any one of your listeners or viewers, the last time Trinidad sold a player for over 10 million US or whatever, it's not happened. It's not happened in a long, long time. So that tells you the kind of market that we're in right now. It's very difficult for clubs to continuously spending that money with nothing coming in. But there is a perseverance among the club owners to continue to try to support the sport.
Yeah, I see Cavaliers, they have a model that seemed to be working. They have no stadium because you talked to Mr. Speedy, wanted to cut down on what you just said, maintenance costs. So he rents a facility. He generally use younger players because salaries are less, because the players are amateurs and younger, and then try to move them, but still be able to produce the result. And maybe that is something like more clubs have to look at as a model a module for how they operate, because like I said, to own a facility is not like you're going to have 15, 20,000 watching a club game, probably anywhere in the Caribbean at all. And you know, the resources, even when you qualify for the Shield or for the club championship, it's not a lot if you don't go to the semifinals or to the finals anyway. So it's very, very difficult. Is it a case where the governments across the Caribbean need to put a demand on foreign investors in the country to, while their educational needs and needs of better roads, where a percentage of the investment go towards the development of sports? Maybe for every tourist that comes into the Caribbean, into Trinidad and Tobago, into Jamaica, there's a 1% levy that is there, that goes towards football and track and field and cricket and basketball. Is that something you're a minister of sports that could be looked at
Now,
across the
look,
Caribbean?
no, I fully agree with you. In fact, when I was minister in 2015, I had a conversation with the then Prime Minister about, firstly, I was looking at ways of reducing the travel costs by taking away some of the tariffs and taxes that come with traveling for sporting teams. That was one of the things I was looking at, because when you look at the kind of expenditure that West Indies cricket and football teams, when they go to play across islands, and as we all know, as Caribbean people, traveling in the Caribbean is a nightmare financially. I mean, when you look at what happens in Spain and in Europe, and you can catch a flight from Ireland to Mallorca for £10 or £20, and that has really hindered the development of the sport, because one of the things that made the 2016 very, very good is that we played a lot of games. I mean, a lot of people don't recognize that. We played a lot of football outside of the window. We'd pop up to Grenada, we'd go down to Guyana, and we played local teams to get together. That gets you to the levels that you should be at, because you're playing more frequently. I think, secondly, to add to your point with levies, all you have to do is trace to Panama. They did that with the canal. They had a system that invested in the sport of football, and Panama is a team that lost us 7-0 many years, well, not many years ago, probably about in 2001 or so. And now they were the more dominant forces in CONCACAF. They had a huge turnaround, and that's because the government had an emphasis in placing monies into sport. I think a lot of the monies in sport, I can speak for Trinidad, I know the Caribbean also have their challenges, is misplaced. And a lot of people may say, well, that's a fair statement, because the government does put a lot of money in football. But when you look at what football requires as a sport, it is still not even close, because there's a demand here in this country that, and rightfully so, that Trinidad and Tobago should be challenging to qualify for every single World Cup all the time. But if you are to do that, and you ask people, what do you believe the spend should be to get to a World Cup? That's where the problem is. And I think that's where governments maybe need to find. Now, we have what you call a tax relief for businesses here in Trinidad and Tobago, but I think it's a little bit too complicated for businesses to get involved. I've spoken to a lot of business people, and they said it's a bit all over the place. They're supposed to pay a tax, and they could claim it back, and they got it. So maybe a levy, which is very simple to put forward on those certain things that could go into sport and to help football, that would certainly help in terms of the funding issues that we have.
Yeah, because I'm even thinking, like, with the success like Trinidad has had, say, with cricket, and even with javelin throw, a couple of athletes as well. Just imagine if, when a sports club, an established registered company, operate as a sports club, goes and whatever taxes charged and sporting equipment, they pay less, right? Like stuff like that. I think the government can help with. If you're a registered sports organization, if you're the Arnett Gardens and you're going to buy sporting equipment, maybe the tax on those things for clubs and schools can be less. So that way you're able, I think, like, a lot of it is policy in terms of government to help with this, while there's a need for capital investment. But I also think changing of policies can benefit not just football but sports across the Caribbean. And then one of the things I've suggested, like Trinidad built several stadiums when they were hosting the Youth World Cup. Would it have been a better thing to ask for, just in the same way when you look at the states, almost all the stadiums in the state are branded by a major corporation. You have the AT&T Stadium. They're connected. You have the Emirates Stadium displays, and so is that something to look at? All right, we the government belong.
I tried that. I tried that as minister. I took it to cabinet, and I was told that I was giving away the state assets, and so you could take that how you want. But I did actually try. I had interest from a company from the US, which will be made nameless, for the cycling velodrome in Trinidad and Tobago. They wanted to take it over in the sense of putting their name on it, having usage of it, and of course paying the upkeep and all these different things. And there would be a usage agreement. And I thought, hey, this is clever, and took that to cabinet, and that was rebutted very quickly. So I think sometimes our leaders don't understand the power of sports. All due respect to them, and I talk about a collective, not a leader, but the collective don't understand the power of sports. Because if you look at here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a crime situation that is constantly rising, but there is a direct correlation between young people playing sports and, of course, a decrease in crime. And statistics all over the world will show you that. That's one of the ways that you can, of course, try to challenge some of the social ills. And we've not really gone into depth in trying to utilize that situation. But it could be used to help fight crime. But, and again, they have to have that bigger picture look to be able to do that. But it's not happened.
But this is where now the Brent Sanchos of this world, the Shaka Hislop, the Paul Halls, the Fitzroy Simpson, some of these players who are from the West Morgan probably need to sit down across the Caribbean and because this is not just a Trinidad issue. It's an issue in Jamaica. It's an issue in St. Lucia. It's an issue in Grenada. And maybe past players who have the knowledge, the expertise, you have been exposed to other environment. Form a committee. And so this isn't approach as let's speak to Trinidad, but let's speak to CARICOM about this and table something to CARICOM. And we look at it as a Caribbean solution to crime and not just separate states dealing with it. And maybe it will, I don't know, because sometimes it's hard to get people to work together and everybody has their own agendas and their own business. But I think maybe if it is looked at as a table document from a CARICOM perspective and it with because there are so many big personalities from football and track and field across the Caribbean. When you think about cricketers, Brian Lara, when you think about the names, Viv Richards, when you think about Usain Bolt, you could call a name from almost all the islands who, if they were to sit down and table something, maybe that will bring a greater impact on Caribbean leadership at the governmental level.
No, I fully endorse your statement. I think that's something that needs to happen sooner rather than later. Because at the end of the day, most of what we've spoken about here, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not coming up with something, this grand idea. These are things that have been tried and proven and factually have been successful. For some reason here in the Caribbean, we've not tried and gone along these pathways. Yes, there's a lot of conversation about how do we improve and develop our young people. And we have examples, so many examples of sporting icons that have done very well with limited resources. Imagine if we actually put resources into sport, what we can achieve. So I fully agree and endorse, and it's probably something that should happen sooner and later. Maybe it's an idea that needs to come out from this show and go into actual practicality, because from where I sit, I think we reach a juncture here in the Caribbean where we have to find solutions quickly. There's too much conversations back and forth about what can and cannot be done, but it needs to be implemented. It needs a lot more practicality, because as it stands right now, nothing's being done. It's just a lot of talk happening.
Yeah. All right. I see. I have a couple of questions from the comment section I'll take, and then we'll get to the high school level because we have dealt with the senior level. It says, I am sure sports. Ensure you ask Brent if he is still not convinced that any Caribbean team can possess the ball. I don't know if you said that somewhere, but
yeah, I made that statement regarding the Jamaica team before McLaren came in, and yeah, and I think some fans got was a little bit upset about it because when you look at the way Caribbean teams play, particularly the English-speaking Caribbean teams, possessing the football has always been a challenge, and it still remains that way. So that probably answers the question. When you look at the comfort levels that you would see in a USA team possessing the ball out of the back, I mean, a Mexico team at the past. I don't think this current Mexico team has that quality. It is something that comes with repetition. And even look in the Premiership, they're not. There's a handful of teams that are comfortable on the ball, moving the ball from the build-up stage into the progression stage. So it is a challenge. I still feel that Caribbean teams struggle to do that. The team that is successful, Caribbean that is, in possessing the ball and playing out from the back, will go very far. And you don't have to go far. If you look at the Jamaica game in Missouri, that was one of the challenges they have. When you're under that sort of pressure, you have to be comfortable in the football and possess it, or else you will get wave of attack because you keep coughing the ball up. Until we can get to that, and it's not, I mean, I say this to people because in the Caribbean, very, very few coaches, certainly when I played, and I could see it now because I do cover a lot of high school football, they don't coach it. Yeah. It's not coached. When you look at high school football here in Trinidad, and I know that's a topic we're going to come into, every single coach, or majority of the coaches, all due respect to them, they play in a way that they want to win football games. It's not about trying to teach kids to do the right things, and even if you get scored on from possessing the back, you'll do it again. No, they all try to win. They all want the prestige of winning the Intercol or winning the SSFL Premiership. So it's not practice. You don't expect a kid that's 14, 15, 16, not learning those principles of the sport and expect him to do it at the adult level in international football. It would never happen.
Yeah, but there is a theory that if you really possess the ball, you'll end up winning. Right, but like you said, that the team that does that will go far. How do you convince? Because I have an issue with that. Because I have a son that plays, and sometimes he is played in positions, not his best position, but because if he plays in that position, the team wins. And this is at what we call in Jamaica the prep school level. This is like from under 9. So even at under 9, the end product, the end goal for the coaches is to be the coach that lifts the title. And so development is set aside and titles are celebrated. What must be done to remove that? Because I know last year I interviewed someone from Sweden, and they were speaking about that, where when they play at that level, it's not, they don't have any table, so there's no points. It's just kids playing, so you don't end up. There's no winner at the end. There's no award at the end because there's no table of who won the most games or scored the most goals, because it's developmental. How do we get that in the Caribbean?
That would be very, very difficult because, again, the culture and the collective is win by all costs or by any means necessary, and hence the challenge that you have, because 99% of the schools they play to win. If you came in with obviously measures that pointed more towards development, the first buy-in has to be the collective, the coaches, the principals, the schools, not the players. The players would do what you tell them to do. But the collective, the adults who all want to go around the cooler and brag about lifting a trophy, that's where your problem is. And even if you look outside of school football in the local club leagues at the youth level, it's still the same principles. It's still the same principles of trying to win. Is everybody want to win these little Republic Bank Cup and all these different things because they think if they win it, it's good for their club, it's good for their image. My club is always win. But nobody really tries. And again, I'm talking majority. There may be one or two coaching schools in Trinidad, but the majority don't try to develop individual players. They always look at the collective and how they win.
Yeah. All right. I see, Andre, I have another question because we're going to come back. We're going to come back to this because then when you talk about possessing the ball, one, you have to talk about coaching education. You have to speak about quality surfaces. Though Mr. Fortune will tell me the kids in Africa possess the ball and they don't have the surfaces. He will say that, but playing on dirt don't make it a bad surface because it could be flat on all level, right? And the grass could be bumpy. So I'm not talking about whether there's grass or dirt. I'm talking about how good the surface is. But it says, can Brent describe the mechanism under which sports functions in TNT? And let's just go back to that and then we.
I think sports is viewed as a hobby in Trinidad and Tobago, and we have not moved out of understanding that sports is a genuine business. Even if you look at the way the Ministry of Sport is set up, they have, of course, the implementation arm in Sport TT. It's still very much viewed as a hobby. We have not tried to tap into sports tourism. We've not tried to tap into the sports science and the drive behind that and what brings and the benefits for those things. So we're still very much in handing out for those little things and you know that is at the surface level. We have to move away because again, Trinidad and Tobago is a team that will consistently be viewed, whether it be cricket, netball, football, track and field, as world contenders. So if the world contenders are operating at a high module, a high business module that allows them to be successful, and we're still at the hobby stage and looking at sports as a hobby, then you know it is a challenge. I always say to people, I am amazed how successful we are in the Caribbean. I am absolutely amazed because when you look at the way that
given how we administrate and operate.
Correct, and the way I mean we've been not just successful but dominated in certain sports, despite all the challenges that we have off the park. I'm just amazed that we're able to do that. People talk about Trinidad and Tobago and our football, but this is a country that's qualified, I believe, for 4 World Cups. You know, and how many countries at that size have qualified? Jamaica the same. Haiti has qualified for World Cup. We are not big number nations, but we are still able to do it, despite the what I said, that the sport is viewed as a hobby.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It is nothing but a miracle. But let's get to that. So I want to come to high school football because I know you're busy and you probably still have to run and stuff. But in high school football, and this is part of the challenge I have, we have in Jamaica, like the last season of Manning Cup and the Costa Cup, we had players that could not play in the under 20 because they would have been too old, but they were playing high school soccer or high school football. Now I have a problem. I have a serious issue with that. All right. And I think it's one of the problems. And again, it's about winning the title. Because I believe at 17, if you want to be, and this is for those kids who want to pursue a career in football at the professional level, why would you be in a high school system at 19 playing against 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds? What are your thoughts on that? And should we cap it at under 17 and you begin to get connected to a professional club? Then they will tell you that there are not enough clubs to take them in. There is no program in there for kids who are 18 and 19, except probably like Central FC or a Cavaliers FC. How do you treat that issue? Maybe it's not a problem for you, but I have a serious problem with a 19-year-old.
I've gotten into a lot of trouble with this current conversation because I just like you, I believe that the kids, it's no way a kid can be 19 and 20 playing high school football. That's to me, that's just mind-boggling. You know, and when I listen to people talk about, well, you know, secondary schools football produced so many players. Yes, that was then. Football has changed and continues to change year in, year out. You cannot expect a guy that's playing against 14 and 13 and 15-year-olds to leave the SSFL or of course, it's a schoolboy football in Jamaica and compete against Costa Rica, Mexico, and USA with kids that are playing professional football. It's crazy to even think about that. So I agree with you that it should be a cap. I was saying 16, I can live with 17. But certainly at some point they need to move on to professional clubs. So I've spoken to many coaches about this here in Trinidad, high school coaches, and they disagree because they feel there's no way for the players to go and play afterwards. Well, as the great saying, so if they build it, if we build it, they would come. That's what we have to do. We have to find somewhere to bridge the gap between that and professional football, or probably bring in, of course, student criteria within professional football that you have to play 2 or 3 under 20 players within your squad, has to be within your squad list. But we have to foster ways to try and bridge that gap. Having kids at 20 and 19 play against 14 and 15-year-olds is not the answer. I prefer for us to look for a situation with kids leaving school at 17 and not being able to play after that.
Yeah, and I'm saying even if they're in school, because for whatever reason, they may want to be in school high school up until 18. Maybe they got in there at 13. I don't know. But they should not be able to participate. And like I said, if you build it, they will find it. And I don't believe that in Jamaica, we have sought to do anything. And again, it comes back to what you said earlier. A lot of this is about we want to build a name around our school, a culture that we are a winning school, and that is many times jeopardizing the progress of the athlete. And it doesn't work out most of the times, because most of these guys, they end up just getting lost in the system. We have had a few, and they leave at 19 and they go into Europe only to come back to Jamaica because of the slow progress of their development, right? And I think there's enough coaching education now that clubs can probably look at, maybe there needs to be an under-21 competition. You know, we used to have the Caribbean, the Shell Cup. I mean, that's way back in the days, in your days, and, you know, the Shell Cup. Maybe the Shell Cup needs to be an under-23 competition across the Caribbean now, and it's played in one place. It's played in Trinidad this year. So there is something for them to look towards. Next year, it is played in Grenada. The following year, it's played in Jamaica. And so it replaces the Shell Cup that the senior team would play, but we provide that space for that age group, which is building just the quality of players right across the Caribbean. What are your thoughts on that? Because, you know, the senior players are stuck in contracts at their club. They're not going to be available during the windows.
Well, one of the things that has pushed the rise in Africa as it relates to football is exactly what you just mentioned. They have under-23 tournament with local players only every year that CAF puts on. I think it's every year, every 2 years. But certainly the Caribbean needs to visit that. And I think that is a terrific idea. And I'll go even further. I think if they can invite teams from Africa and Europe to be part of this tournament, it would help tremendously in, and of course, seeing and bridging the gap. I might even go under 20, because if you remember, we had a under 20 Caribbean Cup as well for some time. And that was something that has gone. Now I know CFU puts on the under 14 and the under 15. And of course, that goes vice versa in terms of that is done every year. But what happens after that? What happens? Because to your point, we have our under 17 World Cup starting next year, every year for the next 4 years. But I shouldn't say every, but the majority of the Caribbean teams, their first game as under 17 comes in the tournament. And how do you expect a team to be successful if the preparation getting into the tournament is not sufficed? And if you ask any of the FAs, They can't do it because of the financial restraints that they have. And I think, of course, you had my good friend, the president of Grenada, on your program once, and he spoke to the challenges that Caribbean countries have when it comes to travel and accommodation. That eats up their budgets, because when you just to go, Trinidad and Tobago is playing against Cuba. To get to Cuba alone, you're talking almost $100,000 to get there because of the travel patterns and all these things. So the point I'm making is we have to find a way between the last tournament that CFU hosts, which is a 14 or 15-year-old, but we need those sorts of tournaments immediately for our 16 or 17 or 18 or 19-year-olds. And the only way I can see it, and to your point, is having a Caribbean Cup maybe every year, every other year, that gives those young people that opportunity to get international exposure and developmental exposure. And just one last point. What do you think reasons why we were successful as youths in Trinidad and Tobago coming up? Is your Alvin Cornelius used to go to the Dallas Cups. You had teams that used to go to this cup and that cup. And when I grew up, I was exposed to international football from a very early age, 12, 13, because we would have, again, maybe travel was a lot cheaper back then. We would play in the Barbados Football Festival. I mean, from 12 all the way up, I remember traveling 2-3 times a year on holidays from school to play in international tournaments. You very rarely see those things anymore. So we have to find a way to make sure that those high-level competitions, as one of your guests is saying, is there for our people, for our young people, or else we spin it up in mud, and then we're looking at the SSFL and the Eastern Schoolboy as the developmental league for our players, which will never work.
Never work, because I mean, just it's if you don't go to the finals, you play like probably 10 games for an entire year. That like the youngster in the US in probably 1 month plays 10 games. Here you go. Just hours of practice.
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
No, you're correct. And we have a defense force has a Canadian coach, strength and conditioning, and he was amazed when I told him the amount of football the young kids between the ages of 14 and 19 play. He couldn't believe how little of the sport that they play, because 9 times out of 10 come January, February, March, is very limited in the amount of football they play. It's very limited in the amount of ball contact that they have. So how do you expect these kids to develop if they see less and less of the football? And that's why we talk about high-level competitions. That's why we talk about situations that could continue to see our kids develop true play in the sport. It's the only way that we would see better success. Because I know we'd like to talk in the Caribbean about how well we're doing, but if you look at the scores and the results our youth teams get, and you lump it together as CFU, it is horrendous. We get battered when we play Central American teams, whether it's at the under 17, under 15 levels, under 14 levels. We lose embarrassingly. We see high scores. And that is because it is a reflection of the lack of development that we have in the Caribbean.
Yeah. One of the things that Marlon Glean, the president of Grenada, did say is that maybe we need to look at MAs partnering to charter, to basically charter a plane, so that the teams can travel together on the plane for the tournaments. So if you come to Jamaica, you go to Trinidad, wherever it is, but that plane is chartered for the window and you create the youth roster to fall into that based on how the flights go. Because like I said, the travel. I remember going to a couple of the places. It's very difficult. To go to Dominica from the airport, it's very, very difficult. And I know this because in the senior men's team, right, one of the things the players have is that I think they don't realize until they come and have to travel how difficult it is to even play in CONCACAF. So a man travels from England, depending on the flight, if he doesn't travel directly, could travel for 10 hours. All right. Then you have to go to, say, play a game in Grenada. There are no straight flights. So you're going to have to connect somewhere to get there. All right. It's very difficult. So travel is difficult. for players coming from Europe to play in the Caribbean, and it's difficult for the different nations in the Caribbean just to move away. And maybe they need to look at a solution where certain MAs come together and just charter a plane and say, for this window, we will come together and charter this plane to move you from here to there. And when it goes there, it picks up our team and brings them there. All right. You may have to wait a little, but we're going to do all of that and come together, because without that, there's not going to be any sustainable growth and not enough resources to do the other things. And that is why players are not going to be paid, which is going to be an issue, because now you're spending so much money on airfare. The players have to basically commit to not taking anything, which is not right, because they're professionals. Or you make commitments and you can't pay them. And so, like you said, you end up having to negotiate with players as Minister of Sports because of payments. So it's so much. It's so much, but I believe we can get it. We can get it right.
Yeah. I think your point about it being a collective is critical. I envisage both cricket and football need to come together and have this conversation, because they're both impacted by travel, and we're seeing less and less in cricket regional tournaments because it's expensive. And we have to find a way. Both sports need to collectively come together. And this is not me suggesting that netball and track and field don't have a similar problem. But I think because cricket and football are the most popular sports, it needs to be either lobbying or a conversation with CARICOM to fix this problem. Because really and truly, it is a fixable problem. What we're discussing here is not something that we can't change. It can change. And the only way it could change is if the collective comes about. And I agree with you. I go back to your comment before about people coming together. I think now is the time. I really believe so, because we're starting to go into a stage where in football, in my humble opinion, we're going back. We're going backwards. I don't think the Caribbean is actually going forward as it relates to our development in players, churning out the talent that is necessary to compete at the world stage. We are not progressing. Yes, there's more money being put in by FIFA. There's more money put in a CONCACAF, but that money is going into the same travel and accommodation that we're talking about, and not into the real purpose of the money, which is to develop coaches and develop players.
Yeah, that is it. So when you get money for these tournaments, just travel alone. It's all the money is absorbed in the travel. Like you just rightly said. But let me just go to this, because we have limited time. I know Mr. Fortune had a couple of things you want to ask, but I know a lot of people are saying that, this qualification is so easy. Jamaica should qualify, Trinidad should qualify for the World Cup, because there's no USA, there is no Mexico, there is no Canada, and there are still basically 4 other spots open. So this is it. If Jamaica doesn't qualify, this is it. If Trinidad and Tobago doesn't qualify, this is it. This is the easiest pathway they will ever have to the World Cup. And I keep telling people, we still have the Central Americans. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you have the Central Americans. You have an ever improving Curacao. You have an ever improving Suriname. You have a very good Haitian team, and you have teams that have dipped in successfully to their diaspora as well. So, from a numbers perspective, it may seem like it's an easier task, but I think from when you start to break down the various squads in CONCACAF, it's still very, very difficult, and it is a challenge for a lot of these teams. Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago still. I think Jamaica obviously has a better chance than Trinidad and Tobago because of the type of talents that they can call on. But it's still not a foregone conclusion because of what I just mentioned with the various teams improving. Curacao has a team that entirely plays in the top half of the Dutch league. Suriname the same. They could call on players that French Guyana could do that as well. So these teams will be competitive. There's no doubt about it. You have an improving Nicaragua as well. That team has done tremendously well, Nicaragua. So yes, there's no USA, Canada, and Mexico, but there's also improving teams that would normally probably sit below Jamaica and Trinidad.
Yeah, I will ask welcome Andre, but before I get to that, I want to find out what makes the Haitians better able to possess the ball than most of the other Caribbean nations. When I am assuming that they are the most limited in terms of resources.
You know, it's funny you asked that question. About 3 weeks ago, I was in Miami for a CONCACAF Congress, and I was having dinner with the Haitian women's coach, and he said something to me that blew me away. So they have, and to answer your question, they have a situation where all the kids that they have almost like an academy, and that academy I think is in northern Haiti. Despite all that is happening, these kids live in the stadium and they play on a turf field. And once they are even showing some signs, they send them straight to France. So the Haitian women's team, the majority of them play in France, and so does the men team. So when we're thinking here that obviously with the limited resources that Haiti has, there seems to be a very good and tight-knit relationship between Haiti and France that has seen this exchange, because he is French himself, that see this exchange in terms of coaching and, of course, exchange as it relates to players. So because of that, they're tuning out a lot of players and being able to do that. And, of course, their diaspora is quite strong as well. When you look at their roster, there's a lot of kids from Canada and the US as well with Haitian parentage. So, yes, they have their challenges, as we all know, that's well documented in Haiti, but they've been resourceful in finding ways to be successful.
All right. We welcome a fellow Trini to the show. Or is he from Tobago? I don't know.
I do have roots from Tobago. So. What's up, Brent?
I'm good, Andrew. Good to see you.
Yeah, same here, buddy. You guys cover a lot of ground. And sometimes, as you know, these conversations could go on forever. They can, we can scratch the surface and we can go deep into it. And but I have a couple of things that you mentioned that I wanted to get your feedback on. And one of them, you guys were just talking about the national teams, the youth teams participating. You mentioned that the under-17 World Cup World Cup qualifiers coming up, and some of the teams going to play their first competitive game in that tournament. As you know, I try my best to pay attention to what's going on in the region, and looking at what role does the CFU play in making sure the region has the support it needs and get the opportunities that it needs to prepare teams for this tournament. And the reason why I'm asking is because they have a strategic plan, and like any plan, the most difficult part of it is the implementation, right? So, they decided they wanted, as part of the strategic plan, they wanted to get 3 women team in the World Cup from CONCACAF, right? That happened. I don't know. It's hard to find anything that they're actively doing to support the strategic plan, but they accomplished that. 3 teams, Jamaica, Panama, and Haiti, went to the World Cup. They're also trying to get 3 teams to the 2026 World Cup. I don't know, from the English-speaking Caribbean. What role do they play in trying to make sure that that the support is there, the opportunities are there to continue development of the players in the region, so some of these goals could be accomplished?
That's a good question. First and foremost, we have to put context in it. CFU certainly has a diminished role from back in the day where they were a much more prominent force. Now with the one CONCACAF situation, their role has been significantly diminished, and so has their budget as well has been significantly diminished. But in terms of their planning and what they're trying to achieve, a lot of it comes down to a lack of resources. And if you talk to anybody in CFU, the majority of the funding that they have go into this under 14-15 tournament. However, I would say that for CFU to be successful, the presidents in the Caribbean needs to put a greater effort in making CFU a greater presence. And because we have not had that, because we've had this one-manisms where everybody's trying to do things on their own and the collective is no longer there, the CFU power in the region or power broker ability in the region has certainly diminished a lot. And that's why why we're having these conversations about developmental tournaments that can't be had and all these different things, because CFU used to be the driver behind most of these things. They're not anymore. Everything goes under this one CONCACAF, and that has certainly caused a lack of now, people in CONCACAF may argue this point because they would suggest, oh, well, there's Nation League and this and that, but that's not helping our football. How many times Angola would play BVI? How many times Angola plays Turks and Caicos? They probably play each other at least 4 times in the last 2 to 3 years. So that's not development. That doesn't help anything. We need to get back to the Caribbean Cup and a stronger presence from the CFU. And again, as much as we could talk here in this program, the only way I'm not blaming CONCACAF, is us, our region. We need to understand the power we have as a collective. We still have the majority reign in CONCACAF. We still decide who is the CONCACAF president. We decide who are leaders within it. But unless our presidents stop thinking about themselves only and look at the greater and the larger collective, it ain't gonna go anywhere.
So, and that's an important point, because I was gonna follow up with the fact that the size of the voting bloc, right, when it comes to how they affect things in CONCACAF or can affect things in CONCACAF and at FIFA level. So we're talking about the Caribbean. We're talking about an organization that has a particular responsibility, and a lot of times there's a lot of justification for why things are the way they are, as opposed to let's think about solutions, right? You said you started a football club, as we all know, and you raised 1.5 million to $2 million US, right? That's impressive. That's impressive. But for some reason, that is something that does not happen frequently. We seem to be sitting and waiting on the funding of FIFA and CONCACAF to get things done in the Caribbean. And I struggle with that. I really do struggle with that, because as individuals, you have lived outside of the country, and you know that you had to get up and get, right? You, as individuals, we go all over the world and become successful, right? Whether it's here in North America, we go to Europe. As individuals, we become successful. Why it is, when it comes to what the Caribbean needs, and as you mentioned, the collective, why it is we are unable to do that? Because at the end of the day, let me say this, as part of the strategic plan, they were to introduce an under-21 tournament in 2022 for men, okay? And that didn't happen, right? And an under-23 in 2024. The last time they had a under-23 was 2015. Haiti won that. Under-20 was 2016. Haiti won that as well. And since that, nothing. And you know how important this age group is in terms of players gaining the experience so that they could go and be integrated into football clubs as far as the development is concerned and national teams. So why are we letting that fall off like it has?
Yeah, no, it comes back to the collective as well. If we went as a group to Carib, if we went as a group to Hilton, if we went as a group to these companies and say, look, we are bringing our collective selves to you, they would be buying. They would want to support. They would want to fund. But we don't do that because and let's go back to the travel, for example. A lot of the problems with the travel, I'm just giving you a snippet as to how the collective don't work. If we use the collective, it will work. So when they travel, these charter companies, they pick the countries off, because guess what? They know they're going to come one by one for flights, and they're going to just jack the price up because they know you don't have an option. But if the Caribbean countries decided to go as a collective and say, you know what, we only using Liat, and if we use Liat, we want flights at this, else we're not taking your business at all. They're gonna come. They're gonna have no other choice but to be on board and become an official flight sponsor, because they're gonna look at the volume that comes with supporting CFU and think, well, this is good business, and I need to be part of that. But because we go into commercial situations in the Caribbean, and it happens even at the league level here in Trinidad and Tobago, it happens, I believe, in Jamaica, I think they do a better job of doing the collective. But if you go at different things at the collective, Trinidad, Grenada, everybody say, we're going all in. Republic Bank is the bank we're going to put You have to remember, guys, that it's millions of US dollars coming into these FA's accounts every year. If they go to as a collective and say we're using one bank, and this bank is going to now sponsor a Caribbean Cup Youth League, it's very hard for that bank to say no. Very, very hard. But that sort of innovative thinking is not present because, again, the collective is not there, because every man jack for himself, and it's not helping, of course, the current situation that we have.
But let me ask this, so Andre, let me just ask this, because I think we're coming back to what we said earlier, because maybe the ideas are great, and here they are. All right, but what do we do after the ideas? Because this may not be something that we should have expectations that the presidents of the MA in the CFU will take on. Does this then mean like a Brent, I said it earlier, a Brent Sancho, right? Let's look at someone in Jamaica. Let's say a Paul Hall as an example. Let's look at he played in the MLS. He's coaching in one of the smaller islands right now. Is it St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia? But you have all of these players, all of these big personalities from across the Caribbean. Who you have Shaka Hislop. We can go on and name names. Is it something for them to come together, prepare even if it means let's bring in, like you said earlier, brilliant idea. Let's bring in Cricket West Indies in this and say, listen, this is Cricket West Indies and this is football across the English-speaking Caribbean. This is what we are presenting.
So let me...
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me try to see if you can rephrase that a little bit. You said that earlier on in the show. And I think the trouble that I'm having with that is that you are naming recognizable names, right? We don't, at least I would think I know, because I talked to him and I think he said it on this show. I don't know that because of his past experience that Shaka is interested in investing any of his time in Caribbean football. Okay, so
Trinidad,
no. In Trinidad in particular. Yeah. What I would say though is we need to find people, right, that have the expertise, right, and not necessarily the names that we are calling, people with the expertise. Look, I would say the CFU has a president right now, right? If it's up to me, just on the fact that Brent is capable of raising 1.5 to 2 million US for a club team, maybe Brent should be installed, right, as president of CFU.
Careful now, might get us a problem.
At the end of the day, this is about results, right? Football is a result business, off and on the pitch. We need resources.
Careful, they put the man for president. When the president is there, you could get us some problems.
Yeah, but sometimes
you need to rephrase that.
Look. Sometimes, if we're not getting justice, right, we need to figure things out. And this, if we need to remove someone and put someone into that, because the football is suffering. The football is suffering in the Caribbean. Football, sport, as Brent mentioned earlier, plays an important role in improving the lives of young people and providing opportunities. And it's not happening at the moment. It's not happening at the moment. I don't know, Brent said earlier that he don't think, and he wasn't speaking to anyone in particular, but he said he don't think that the leaders understand the role that sport can play in the lives of people, right? I don't know. I can't see how that's a difficult concept to understand. It's not, and I'm not blaming you, Brent. That's probably true. But if we have 12 teams in the TTPFL, well, maybe they understand, and maybe they can start doing something. And because we just saw in Jamaica recently, there's an entertainer. There's some people is challenged by the fact that things surrounding the entertainer, but the election is coming, right? And the party in power aligned themselves with him because they believe they can help him reach the people. You understand what I'm saying? So if things
you hit the nail on the head. I'm glad you're going down that road. You hit the nail on the head. I'm happy you're going down that road, because that's exactly it. The powers that be don't view football as a mechanism to get them back into power. I mean, I'm talking as plain and as blunt as possible, because when you look here in Trinidad and Tobago, for example, the prize money, I believe, for the TTPFL is 100 or 200,000 TT dollars. But if you look deeper, there are several competitions in several constituencies that have 80,000 first prize for 7-a-side and 90,000 first prize. When you collectively add up that money, it's not coming from, it's coming from, you know where that is coming, that money is coming from. As we have an election next year in this country, that is the kind of money is being spent in constituency, not because they like football, they do it because they view going into these constituencies, having these little 7-a-side football tournaments as the better outlet to get themselves back into power. So they don't view the pro league or anything like that as a mechanism. They view those kind of things. So that is one of the challenges they have right there. Is that the money is money. We have money, you know, but it's how they spend it and where they spend it and where they decide to push it into. And that is one of the challenges we have. And going back to the fact of utilizing people to try to navigate this thing, that a lot of the leaders take self first before obviously looking to try to get the greater good right. And that is where one of the problems is in sports, is that you really don't get a leadership that take the opportunity to try to fix these issues. Because you're right, sports and crime, it's an easy coming together. It's an easy fix. And we'll see the reduction. You've seen it all over the world. It happens. But for the reason I just said, we don't do it here.
So I run a football club, and in part of that, as part of that, on a day-to-day basis, sometimes you come across kids who it might be a struggle financially. You know, the system is here in the US. And one of the things that sometimes a family would come and say, well, he'll have to stop because we can't afford XYZ. And my first question is, what would he do with his time? Right? And over the years, you have allowed some families to stay on for that very same reason. Because if that kid is not there, what is he doing with that time in the afternoon? Right? 4 or 5 days a week. Right? That's setting him up to go, you know, get himself into something, right, that he otherwise wouldn't do if he's coming to the club and learning what it takes to be a productive member of society. So I think we're coming up short. We explain it a lot. We explain it a lot in the Caribbean. We justify it, right? And I think that we, as you just said, we have money. Money is not the problem, right? It's how we spending the money. I remember on Management, I think on Management Show and on another program, Cranky Live, I heard, you know, Jamaica is experiencing what a successful national team can do for football, right? Qualifying for Copa America, qualifying for Gold Cup, getting into the next round, they're receiving revenue for that. And I remember one of the chairman of the technical committee one time said, you know, we have money, right? We're not broke, we pay our bills. and he said it with a certain pride. You understand what I'm saying? And so if we're not going to invest in the national team, in the senior team in particular, because some people believe that the money should go towards development of the youths and ignore the senior team, I think that is flawed, right? You have to do both, okay? Because Jamaica right now have revenue, right, Management, as a representative.
I feel like all of a sudden I'm being interviewed. I don't know.
So Brent, yeah. What do you have any ambition?
No.
I as I was saying to Management at the start of this program, my journey has taken some interesting turns and twists, and I wouldn't put that out of the reckoning at all, because I'm very passionate, not just about Trinidad, I'm very passionate about the region and us doing well. I truly believe that we can get this right, and if it means that I have to get myself involved in a situation to help in that way, I certainly will. And it really, as I said, needs not, I don't think just myself, but I think it needs a collective of people with the same mindset that are in the right positions to make that happen. But it's something that maybe in the future, but right now, you know, helping clubs locally, helping some of the FAs regionally is where I'm at. But who knows, in the future, possibly.
All right.
Well,
And let me ask you this one, Andre, and then we'll go. Given your footballing pedigree, why are you not more involved in Trinidad and Tobago football?
so you decided to interview me and not Brent now.
I'm just appeasing a commenter, and then we'll because I know Brent has to go. Then
The
we'll just
opportunity has never
yeah.
presented itself. As a matter of fact, I can say I've been told
I like how Brent, I like how Brent is like smiling. He said
no,
that. What
no,
are you talking about?
I'd be honest with you.
You have to make your own opportunities, my friend. You know
Well,
how opportunity works. They
I
don't
have
just
done
turn up.
that.
You have to make them.
I have
Okay.
done that, but I'm going to tell you that I look at football a certain way. Like Brent was talking about possession football earlier. I think football should be something that is enjoyed by everyone, by the fans, as for me now, coaching youth. The philosophy that I have is that the fans, the players, and the families must enjoy the game, right? So the game must look a certain way, and we work extremely hard to do that. And I've been told on at least 2 occasions, probably 3, that the way I want to play football, the way I see football, I would never be able to coach a national team in Trinidad. So, and that's okay. That's somebody else's perspective. But so maybe I'm not. Maybe I have a better chance in Spain than than in Trinidad or in the Caribbean.
But let me say this, Andre.
But I do have proof of concept. I do have proof of concept. That
Hear you.
all over the world. So.
But let me just say this though, because in my conversation with Shaka, I think if there is a new approach to the a new approach and a transformational process, I see him as someone he just doesn't trust what is happening, and that is because of his experience, which must be understood. But I've spoken to Marlon Glean from Grenada, Ken Dale from out St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and these guys, it's the same concept that you have, and that is why I believe that there is enough intellectual capacity among former players and administrators in the football to collectively come together outside of the presidents of the MA, put together some sort of working document, a strategic plan, and that is taken to the CARICOM level. And we're not usurping the authority of the CFU, but I think, like I said, if collectively CARICOM on a whole can say, you know what, this is a working document for sport transformation, youth transformation, and this is coming from people who have played, administrated at the highest level in the Caribbean, in the Americas, and in Europe. And then that be presented to the CFU. It may be the past. And maybe, Brent, you are probably being a sports journalist and being on the government side and the player side. Maybe it's something that you need to, just look at who are the persons that, because I think if that doesn't happen, we're going to be having this conversation 5 years from now. And 10 years from now, it's the same conversation. A new generation having the same conversation, because no transformation would have taken place and would have died with all of these good ideas, and the cemetery would be packed with brilliant ideas, and life goes on, and the football is not impacting Laventil, that's the name of it, and Tivoli Gardens, and it's not
Lavant Hill.
Thank you, sir. I'm not from Trinidad. Lavant Hill. There you go. It's not impacting. It's not. Imagine with me, with the crisis in Haiti, this collective group of persons were to go to Haiti in the midst of this crisis and do sporting thing to bring the people together. Just imagine if it was so established that instead of sending in forces from Kenya and from Jamaica and from all of these places, football became the vehicle of transformation with the crisis in Haiti. And I think it's going to take just people like you, Brent, and others with these ideas to find a way of moving them from ideas to implementation.
No, I agree. I think going back to I mean, I can't speak for Shaka, but yeah, there's a side where you're not sure how seriously. I mean, all due respect to the CARICOM, we've seen how they've handled West Indies cricket and how that has gone. And so from coming from a footballing perspective, and not making any excuses, so I do think it is a great idea and it's something that should be explored. But certainly, you would think Shaka, people like Shaka and even myself, you're looking at it a little bit hesitant because you see that it is not an issue that is important. Us here on this call, we are very passionate about it. I just don't feel like the leaders are. But however, we can't just sit and talk about it. As you rightfully said, the ideas would die in the cemetery. We have to find a way to move it forward. And it does come with that sort of dialogue and from people, as you mentioned, like myself and others, to put it forward to Caribbean, to CFU, to push that narrative, because the answers are there. We've spent some time having these discussions and the answers are all there. It's just we really need to find a way to implement these answers and push it forward, because as time goes on, even the days and the seconds, the football level is dropping. So we have to do something about it.
So Brent, do you see if we take Trinidad, for example, as a solution? There's a league that's going to start, and for years, it's difficult to find. I don't know how many of these teams have website, but maybe just one or two of them, a simple thing like that. But there's a huge a lot of countries. You take Israel, for example. It doesn't matter where in the world you were born, right? It doesn't matter if you converted, right? But if you identify yourself as a Jewish person, you're welcome in Israel, right? That seems to be a little bit different in our region. But the football clubs, why won't they utilize the resources from the diaspora? So, for example, there's people here. I know of one situation there recently, and unfortunately, the person that owned the club passed away. But where one person got involved, became a member of the board, brought somebody else in as a member of the board. That person had the expertise, for example, to build websites and do marketing and stuff. And they were able to contribute to the professionalism of that club, right? Because they live outside of the country, they've seen things done differently, they have certain resources, and they contribute. It's not a situation where you just providing financials and not involved in the decision making, right? Do you not think that that's something would benefit the club if as part of the board they have people who have different expertise that may be interested from outside of who that lives in the diaspora? Is not a word that I embrace, but I have to use it. It makes it simple. To be part of the board so that they can help. Because if I go to somebody today and say, look, this club Central FC in Trinidad needs some help. What are they offering? That's number one, right? But if the person want to do it, would they feel better doing it if they know that I'm a part of the board and is involved in the decision making, as opposed to you just handing over resources and you don't know what's going to happen?
Yeah, no, I think, look, first and foremost, I do think the clubs in Trinidad and Tobago certainly could do more and could do a better job. You mentioned website. They should certainly do that. And, it's easy for these clubs to say, well, we don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower, etc., etc. But you have to help yourself. You have to find ways of doing that. I do think that tapping into experts outside of the country with lineage certainly would help, and trying to attract those sorts of things. But it's not done, is it, really, to attract people like yourself or others who may be interested in it? When you look at the TTPFL, and it's probably one of the shortcomings of it, obviously there are others, is that it's not inclusive. It really does not, if you're not within that little square or circle, it's not inclusive to get others involved and get other people to come on board. I think a lot of the club owners find the majority of the day trying to figure out where the next dollar coming from to pay salaries the next month. And that's their concern, because despite the support they get from government and from the league, that's a drop in the bucket for what they actually spend. And most of the owners are constantly trying to find ways to get monies and income. But they also have a responsibility to try to be as encompassing and as inclusive as they should be. And it's maybe something that that the clubs have to look at, because they can't do it on their own. And a lot of these club owners are starting to find out that the hard way.
You have to offer something. And I don't think anybody out here is expecting any monetary return from anything, but just a personal experience, I think it's the best way to had a conversation with a club some while back. The regular situation, and I made two phone calls here, and the response was, just let me know what you need. You understand what I'm saying? But once you attach anything to it, then it doesn't happen, right? Because we want to have control. We don't 100%. We don't want to give up control, and you have to put yourself in a position where you can utilize the resources, and not just the resources, but the expertise, right? Because there are individuals here who are marketing experts, who are different aspects of football. They run football clubs, they coach in football clubs. We have a lot of guys up and down the East Coast, all over America, for example, in England, that have had a different experience and would be willing to contribute. So I don't know why we're not utilizing that expertise.
Yeah. Listen, I want to thank you so much, Brent. We have gone, I think we're past the time, a busy man, and I don't want you to say I am not going back on that show because it's too long, because the conversation has been very good. And I want people to be able to listen to the whole thing and absorb the information, because lots of great ideas. You have certainly dropped a lot of nuggets. And I really hope that, our next conversation would be that something is in motion. It has moved from the idea stage to paper, and there is a something in motion taking place. Because, like I said, I've had so many conversations with leaders across the Caribbean, in football in particular, and we all agree what the problems are. We all agree to what the solutions are, but we have yet to come to implementation. And I'm hoping that will happen. I remember as a kid watching, Russell Latapy, Leonson Lewis, the Dwight York playing against the Hector Wright, the Winston Anglins of Jamaica. And whether that was in Trinidad or that was in Jamaica, full stadiums, drum playing, and lots of excitement. I don't even think if Jamaica playing Trinidad in Jamaica, like, people want to go and watch the game anymore.
Yeah, because I think they know you're going to lose.
Like,
I think they know you're going to lose. That's the problem.
I'm thinking, when did we get here? There was a game like at the schoolboy level with Dwight York and Mark Hagler Wilson. Those games were packed with people. And this is schoolboy football. That was the age. I think it was when they were young. And I'm saying that, like, no, under 17 game between Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, you don't see anyone really watching it. Probably like 20 people, 30 people. And I'm thinking, how did we get here? And we all know the solution. It's just time for us to really we are going to implement this. We are going to put things together to get this done. So I want to thank you so much for your time. Continue to do the great work you're doing on Sportsmax. Listen to you. I have a problem. I've decided I've boycotted a lot of schoolboy football because I can't watch it with 19-year-olds playing against 14-year-olds, and then people telling me, and I'm supposed to come and say, yeah, man, that's a good football.
I must admit, I hope.
Go ahead.
I hope it changes soon. You see that point that you made there. If it's one thing after this show, I would love to see change in the next couple of months. Is that I know it here in Trinidad they call it the quote unquote Ministry of Education League, but it doesn't help football. It doesn't help football, and there's no way Ministry of Education could give a football decision. Don't miss me with the whole. If the kid is a student, it is not helping it, and it has given a lot of some of these. There's a huge. If you look at not to prolong the program, but if you look over the last 5 to 8 years, there's very few schoolboy footballers made the leap into the top tier because they struggle. That gap, they do struggle because they're so used to beating up on these 14 and 15-year-olds. The bad habit that they have, they think they could do it now at the next level, and it's a problem. So my hope out of everything we discussed today, which is a lot, and I think some great ideas, is that changes sooner rather than later.
At the risk of, sorry, management, I have to say this because you all talked about that earlier. Some of the people that is responsible for the development of football, for some reason, still talks about schoolboy football as a developmental league. And you can't develop, no elite player in any country should be playing schoolboy football, whether it's Jamaica, Trinidad, or whatever the case may be. If you're an elite player, you're in our national team, you got to be at a club somewhere playing. And we've got to rebuild the structure of football where these guys are training 4 or 5 days a week at a football club. I think schoolboy football is an extracurricular activity, and it should exist for as grassroots football, basically, but not as a place where, you know, a guy playing an under 20 tournament and goes back to playing against 14 and 15-year-olds, as you said, and then we say from that performance against those 14 and 15-year-old, people in the fan base is saying, well, he should be in the senior national team. That just doesn't, it doesn't, because there's a disconnect. When you put a kid that's in that space to come together with guys who are playing at clubs, at big clubs in Europe or whatever, there's no communication. They can't communicate when they get together because they're different levels, right? They're different levels, and so failure is ultimately what we're going to see. So unless we all get in a room and get on the same page and fix this, but again, we understand the individual nature of things. What's in it for me? So hopefully you can play a role. Keep up the good work, Brent.
Truly appreciate it, guys, and anytime, I promise it wouldn't be this long next time. If I have to come on, I would definitely make sure and make available myself.
When you get a chance,
I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. Great conversation.
When you get a chance, tell management how it unfolded. Okay.
So, you know, well, what did we do in Trinidad? Was it Nations League? We were in Trinidad and we met at this.
Yes.
We were talking. Was it Nations League?
Yeah.
Was it a friendly? I don't remember.
No. It was a friendly. It's a friendly game at Larry Gomes. Trinidad versus Jamaica.
Yes. And we talked about it and stuff. So I was trying to find pictures, you know, but all the pictures was when you had your lock, and I know that reminded you so much of Peter Crouch. So I said that we used the one that you have, you know. I didn't want to bring back the Peter Crouch memories. You know,
I read somewhere that you forgave him. And I never really get to ask you about that, and I don't understand.
Yeah, have you ever spoken to him about?
Well, I've gone one step further than forgiving him. I actually wrote a chapter in his book. He did a book recently, and I did a chapter in it. It was around what have players done after their career, and I was one of the players that he featured in his book. And I had a long conversation for about 1.5 to 2 hours. And yeah, so far we do keep in touch. We message every time to time and how he's doing. And so we went by it, and he apologized first. He started off by apologizing. I don't know if you guys saw, but Alexi Nunez had interviewed him on ESPN, and she said, "You're not liked in Trinidad because of Brent Sancho." And then he's like, "Oh my goodness, they know Brent." And a couple of weeks later on, he reached out to me and apologized, and then we got on the phone and we talked a bit, and then the idea was obviously to write in his book. So it was good to have the conversation. Obviously, time has passed, and more importantly, it's good to see that Peter is doing very well. He has a good a podcast, and I said the book that he's done, which is a great idea. We continue to have the conversations as it go along.
Do you have Cash App? You have
No.
Cash App?
No.
Well, I'm going to invoice you. I'm going to invoice you because I don't think you should forgive him. You should forgive him, but I'm going to invoice you because it cost me quite a bit to be at that game. So And I wanted to see Trinidad get a result in that game. So you're gonna have to refund me some of my resources.
I didn't necessarily forgive him for what he did, but I forgive him in general, where we can have a conversation and whatnot. But like I said, when it happened, I don't think, to be honest with you, him as an individual is a mean person or have militia behind him. But we play in a sport where people do anything to try to get an extra yard, and he did what he felt he needed to do to do that.
Do you know that they still beat Maradona for the hand of God goal?
Yeah, they do. They
Still beat him, but you forgave him.
No.
You gotta have balance now.
They're not happy about it. Yeah, no. They still beat him as well. But now, at the end of the day, as I said, he surprised me with the call, and he was genuine. He went on for the first 15, 20 minutes asking for forgiveness. But when we started to talk about the sport and what he's done afterwards, and we had a lot of things in common, it was good to hear that he's doing good things,
Yeah,
that's humility on his part.
And don't worry, man. How many years now since Trinidad qualified for the World Cup?
As a matter of fact, less years than 1998.
Oh, no. How many?
I don't know where you're going, but I just want to make sure.
No. 2026 will be 20 years, right?
Yeah.
2026,
18 years now.
So we will have the Brent Sancho, Peter Crouch friendly 2026.
That sounds very good.
Brent, could I coach your team? Could I coach your team?
Of course, you have to be the coach, and management will be the manager.
Yeah.
No, I've been hearing recently that you can't trust management with passports, because they just disappear.
Hey, be careful now. That somebody might do a show on that. Be careful.
Well, thank you so much, Brent, for coming on. Really appreciate the conversation with you. Like I said, lots of nuggets that you have shared. Continue to do well in your career. It's always so good to see former footballers who are high quality footballers also continuing the sports, even from a journalism standpoint. And you do a very good job on Sports Max. Don't like sometimes when you speak about Arsenal, but bless up.
Low hanging
yeah. But all the best to you and your family, and I'm looking forward to 2026. The Brent Sancho Peter Crouch friendly. Yeah,
it's on. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, Brent. Take care, buddy.
All right, take care.
Man is man. Later, okay?
All right, bye. All right, so there you have it, people. Brent Sancho, wonderful conversation, wonderful discussion. As usual, I want to thank you for your time, for being here on I Am Sure Sports. As usual, we don't break our shows to ask people to hit like button and subscribe and share. But now that we are at the end, I ask you, if you have not done so, to hit the like button. If you have not subscribed to I Am Sure Sports, go ahead and do so. Also, share the content with others so they can know what's happening here. And I Am Sure Sports. I know a lot of you want to hear a lot about the Reggae Boys and what's happening, what's going on, and about Cavaliers versus Cibao. We're going to have those discussions. Just came back from national duty and just getting ourselves together. But this was a long-planned interview that we had to do. Listen, God bless you. You may hear from me before the day end. I don't want to make a promise that I can't fulfill. But be good and do good for the rest of the day. I am Management. This has been I Am Sure Sports. And as usual, when it gets to the end of the show, we say we are over and we are out of here.
Trick-Nick Jerk Marinade gives your meats and vegetables authentic Jamaican jerk flavor. The spices are directly from Jamaica. Spices like jerk seasoning, allspice, Scotch bonnet pepper, fresh scallions, thyme, ginger, and garlic. The key ingredients to a great jerk marinade. 0% sugar and low in sodium. You want to try it?